Hi everyone, thank you very much for watching this video and for subscribing to my channel. So in this video, we're gonna see two ways that you can have your show network layout. If you recall from my video where we did the first setup of the Falcon Player, I show this diagram that I have on the back. So basically, you can have two setups in your network layout. So the first of all is you will need to have a Ethernet cable running from your router to your Falcon controller. And even the Falcon controller has a Wi-Fi model. The firmware that as of the end of 2020 was developed does not support the Wi-Fi yet. So the only way to get to it is by plugging it into a router via an Ethernet port with an Ethernet cable, and then getting to it by its IP address. Um, that's not the case for the Falcon Player. The Falcon Player comes with the Wi-Fi enabled, so you can get to it without any problem. So this layout that we have on the top is something that you could start with. I mean, you don't have to go into the second option, which I will explain in a minute. Basically, then you will run your sequence from your Falcon Player. The data will flow through your router and into the controller, and that's it. The only down part of this is that, well, this Ethernet cable could be a very long cable, you know, and all depends where you have your router. I mean, your controller could be outside underneath your Christmas tree, or in your garage, or in your attic, or in your basement, you know, any place. And you will need to have a cable connected to your router in order to get to it. So that's the only downside of all this, right? Now, the second option, which is the one I'm going to show to you, is how you can actually create a standalone um, uh, devices, you know, that you can actually get to them using the Wi-Fi that the Falcon controller or the Raspberry Pi comes with, meaning that now you can get to both the Falcon controller and the Pi or the Falcon Player using the Wi-Fi. So now you have a standalone devices, you know, that could be sitting outside or in your garage, or again in your attic or in your basement, wireless. So now you can connect to them to do all the basic configuration via Wi-Fi. And I'm talking about the Falcon Player and the Falcon controller. Okay. Now to do so, we need to do some special configuration in both of those devices and in your computer. So to do that, we will need to look at the second graphic that I have over here. So now let's focus on option number 2, which is having your Falcon Player play the role of a router, meaning that we're going to get to it and then we're going to pass by all the data through a Ethernet cable that now it's going to be connected to your Pi straight to the Ethernet port of the controller, and that should work. So even before we get into the steps, which I have here, I do want to explain a little bit about the network and how this is going to work. I'm not just going to throw, you know, all the instructions and hope for the best for you. I want you to get at least a minimum understanding of what's going on. So let's get into it. So basically, right now you have a Wi-Fi connection and a router, right? The router is giving you an IP address to your computer, and also is giving you an IP address to your Falcon controller, which is wireless, and an IP address or a, you know, that for your Falcon controller, which is connected via Ethernet. Now, all that I'm just about to do, that's the setup that I have. The Wi-Fi is enabled on the Falcon Player, and my Falcon controller is connected via Ethernet to the back of my router. So that's how you need to start. So coming back to it. So knowing that the Falcon controller can actually have both Ethernet and Wi-Fi, what are we going to do is route is basically just enable the routing between those two ports. So now we can get to it by using our Wi-Fi connection, but also reroute, our request to get into the Falcon controller by its Ethernet port. So this is basically how it's gonna work. We're gonna have two networks, a Wi-Fi and an Ethernet, because this can control both. Now, if you don't fully understand this concept, don't worry about it. If you follow the steps, you're gonna be able to have this setup, okay? So as we go through, you're probably gonna understand a little bit better what's going on. All right, so now let's get into the steps right here. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna open a command prompt on your computer, which is the computer you're gonna be using to move things around, that you're gonna be using to upload stuff to your Falcon player, or to set it up, or to set up your Falcon controller. So that computer, we're gonna make some changes to it in a bit, but just keep that in mind. This is only gonna work from one computer, or later on you will need to do something to your second computer if you want two of them connect to your show. But for now we're just going to focus on one. So let's open a command prompt. To do so, we're going to click on the search. We're going to do cmd, which is a command, and we're going to right click into the command prompt and choose run as an admin. This is needed because some of the things that we're going to do requires administration privileges, and if you're not going to be able to do some of the settings. So let's do that, and it asks you if you want to make changes to your device. We click yes, and now we have a screen on the back. So we're going to click on it, and we're going to type ipconfig. With this, we're going to get, it's going to show us the configuration that we have in our network. And I want you to get a piece of paper and a pencil or pen, because you're going to have to write a couple of things. So we're going to click ipconfig and click enter. And I want you to focus on the lower part of your screen. So here we have some information. First of all, your IP address of this computer is 10.0.0.12. We have a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0 and a default gateway of 10.0.0.1. Now, the default gateway, this is your IP address of your router, the one that comes from Comcast or AT&T, whatever provider you use. This is your gateway to the to the internet outside, to the world, right? This is the address that you need to keep in mind. So please write down the following numbers. Write down the subnet mask, which should be 255.255.255.0, and your default gateway, which is 10.0.0. This is on my case. Yours is going to be different, okay? So write down those numbers, and I have them right here. Now, if you look at here, I have yours may start with 192.168.something.something, and this is I know this because this is the factory settings that most of the routers have. Mine has 10.0.something.something because I changed it. I just make it simpler for my network to be, some easy to remember numbers. So now that you have written down those numbers, let's start making changes to the Falcon Player and then to your Falcon controller. Now, most of the magic, most of the hard setup that we're going to do is on the Falcon Player. So let's go to the Falcon Player and we'll follow this instructions. So I'm going to open my browser, and I already have open both of them. I have my Falcon Player with a IP of 10.0.0.86 and my Falcon controller with 10.0.0.85. So both of them are sitting in the same network. How I know? Because of the last two numbers, 0.86 and 0.85. Okay, so the 0 means that if those two numbers, that 0 is the same as the player, I know they're in the same network. Okay, and then the 85 is just a unique number that is assigned to your computer, to each of the devices that you have inside that network. So later on, I'm just going to change, and then let me go back to that diagram to explain to you what's going to change. So in the Wi-Fi, we're going to keep that address of 0 dot something. In my case, I choose 100 because I like the number. It's a good round number. So from now on, my Falcon Player is going to be referenced at 0.100. But now, through the Ethernet, I'm going to create another network. And this one is going to be .1 dot something, right? And I'm going to do the same to my Falcon controller. I'm going to change this IP address to be something .1 dot and pick a number. I picked 100 for my Falcon Player and 85 for my Falcon controller. You can pick any number as long as it's below 255, okay? So you can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 255. Pick higher numbers because chances are in your local network that the lower numbers might be already occupied by some of the devices. If you have phones, you have a smart TV, you know, a smart fridge, those are taking IP addresses from your. So pick 100, 101, 102, whatever number comes to your mind. So now by having these two different networks, what we're gonna do is make our controller talk to the Pi controller, to the Pi, using its Ethernet address. But then we're gonna reroute everything to our 0 network, and now that's going to be able to come outside to our Wi-Fi network. Okay, so that's why there's this 0, 0, 100 and 1, 100 and 185. Everything that is on the 1 level can talk to each other, and everything that is on the 0 level can talk to each other, you know. So this means the first question is wait a minute, so how am I going to talk to 185 if I'm on network 0? Well, I'm just gonna show it in a minute, because thanks to the Falcon Player software, we can actually make both of network talk to each other, okay? And that's what I'm gonna show you in a minute. So let's go back to our Falcon Player and start doing some settings. So here is my Falcon controller. I'm gonna go into this Falcon Player, and now I'm gonna go into the status and network. So this is where the magic starts. Now the Ethernet 0, meaning the connection that I'm gonna have to my Falcon Player. I mean to my Falcon controller. This is the settings that I'm gonna choose one right here. But first of all, I'm gonna choose the Wi-Fi and make some changes to it. So basically, first of all, I'm gonna set up this upper level, and then I'm gonna set up this lower level. So the Wi-Fi, the first thing that I'm gonna change is I'm gonna make it static. Right now we set to DHCP, meaning that my router is gonna give me any number, but I wanted to make it static. Why static? Because I don't want it to change forever. Okay, I want to have, I want to know its IP number forever, right? Because otherwise, if the controller suddenly gave me another number, I'm not going to be able to find my Falcon Player. So I'm going to make it static. I'm going to choose a number and write it down. You know, what I did is I actually grab a piece of tape and put it on my router, and then write the IP address so I remember next year which one I chose, right? So I'm going to click in the static, and I'm gonna give it a 10.0.0 because that's my my network that I have for the wireless. .100, that's the number that I want. And for the subnet mask, I'm gonna choose 255.255.255.0. That's a standard. And from the gateway, I'm gonna choose 10.0.0.1. Now, Why do I need a gateway? What is this gateway? If you remember, that's the address that we got from our first IP config that we did, right? We have it right here, this gateway. So basically what I'm telling it is that if when I'm going out to the world, right, it's gonna go through that IP address through the router. So if I click help for an example, this is gonna go into internet and download the user manual, stuff like that. If I don't have this gateway, it won't be able to reach it. Okay, so now this is set. This is the 1.0. Okay, this is my wireless. Okay, now I'm gonna scroll down. I'm gonna update the interface, but that's coming in a minute. I'm gonna scroll down, and I'm also gonna add a DNS server, and I'm gonna type the same number as my router, then 00.1. What is a DNS? Is a domain name server. Basically, it allows me to find a computer in the internet using its name, like yahoo.com. In the background actually is an IP address. So just set that to be your gateway, which in this case we know is yours is going to be 192.168.0.1, I believe, or something like that. Okay, so we just gonna leave it like that. We're not gonna touch the tethering, nothing in here, but do make sure that we have enable routing between networks interfaces selected. This is what is going to allow us to communicate from this network through this network by actually enable routing between these two networks interfaces, the Ethernet and the wireless. So make sure that you have those set up, that check mark, otherwise it's not going to work. So I have a check in here, DNS, and a static IP address. Okay, and this is our wireless communication, which we already set, because if you can get to it, means that you already set it. And this is something that we went through in the Falcon Player initial setup video. So now I'm gonna update the DNS. I'm not gonna restart it yet. I'm gonna update the interface, and I'm not gonna restart it yet. Okay. Because I need to go into the Ethernet now. And then what I'm going to do, instead of restarting the network, I'm going to reset the Falcon controller and the Falcon Player at the same time. Reset is just meaning unplug it and plug it back. Okay. Now, one warning. On the Falcon Player, we do have a shutdown button at the bottom. It's not something that you can just unplug because it has an operating system. It boots at the beginning, it loads a lot of stuff. So you need to shut it down just like if it was a computer, right? You shut it down. It takes only about 5 seconds to shut down. You don't get a warning. Just wait 10 seconds and then you can unplug it. Okay. And the Falcon controller, it doesn't have a on and off switch. You just unplug it from the wall. Okay. So we're done with the one, meaning that let's go back to our instructions. So we assign the IP address. We check that the routing is enabled, and now let's move into the Ethernet part. So we're gonna click Ethernet, and again, now we're talking about from my router, from my Falcon Player to my Falcon controller. So now this is the Ethernet, right? It has an Ethernet port. So now in a minute or two we're gonna plug a wire from our Ethernet port to our Ethernet port in our Falcon controller. Okay, so before doing that, let's go back and set it up. So again, it's going to be static, and I'm going to choose a number. For my Falcon controller, I'm going to pick 10.0, but now it's 1. Any number, 85. Okay, why 1? Because this is our secondary IP address that we're gonna have on the bottom. This is our secondary network, right, on the bottom. So 0 on the top, 1's in the bottom. Okay, this is gonna talk to each other, and then this is gonna talk to each other. Okay, so that's how we're gonna route everything. Okay, and again, we're Ethernet. We're gonna choose the same IP address, network mask 255, 255, 255s. And for the getaway, I'm going to change this number to be 1.100. Okay. And now this is wrong. My IP address is going to be, what do I have here? My IP address on the Ethernet, oh, we got erases, 10 dot, this could be dot 0 dot 1 dot 100 network mask, and the getaway is going to be 1.1. Oh no, this is empty. We leave this one empty. We don't have a getaway on the Ethernet because it's actually our Wi-Fi is the one that has the routing out. Getaway is empty in here. So remember, Ethernet, we're just gonna assign a number of 0, 1, 100. In your case, it's gonna be something else, right? 192 something, and 255s in here. Okay. Now, DNS settings. We're gonna use again the same DNS as in the Ethernet on the wireless. Okay. So again, this is already set. I'm gonna update this interface as well. And on the bottom, we already have enable routing chose, right? So now we have a Ethernet, which has a port of 10s and 255s, and a wireless that has these numbers. Okay, so remember, we are going to access our Falcon Player by this number, and inside now the Falcon Player also has an IP address of 100, but it's in another network. Okay, which is the setting that I have right here. Is 1 dot. This is my static for this device. So the 85 is going to talk to the 100, and then the 100 is going to talk to the Wi-Fi, and then to the world. Okay, so we are done in here. This is all the settings that we need to do in our Falcon Player. Okay, now let's move into our Falcon controller. And the setup here is pretty straightforward. There's not too much to change in here. All we have to do is make it a static of something dot 1.85, and you'll be good. Okay, you can actually do that. So now for actually in here you can choose the same as me. You can put 10.0. These numbers do not interfere with the numbers that you have outside. Okay. So now in here we're going to go into the network configuration, and if you notice, we have no wireless. See, this is why I'm telling you that the build that right now we have does not support Wi-Fi configurations on the Falcon controller. So the only thing we can do is go through a wired connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect the DHCP, because right now it's giving me an address of the router. I'm going to unselect it, and I'm going to change this IP address to 185. Okay, now I just moved my router, my Falcon, from this network out on the top. I just moved it to the 1.85. So now I'm inside this network. Okay, and the getaway is going to be 1.100. Why 1.100? Because this is the number that I gave the Pi controller, the Falcon Player. So now that's my getaway. See, if I want to get out of this network, I need to use the IP address of my Falcon Player, which is set up in the Ethernet of the Falcon Player. Subnet mask, I'm going to leave it at 255s, but my primary, I'm going to put again 10.0.0.1, just like in the other cases, and we're gonna leave this one as it is. Okay, so this is the only settings that we need to do in our Falcon controller. Okay, we're gonna move it from our Wi-Fi, from our wired into the router IPs to my Falcon Player subnetwork now. Okay, and my getaway is gonna be now my Pi or my Falcon Player, which has an IP of 100. Okay, so now we're gonna get out. So we are pretty much done on this side. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause the video right here, and I'm gonna restart both the Falcon Player and the Falcon Controller. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unplug my Falcon controller from my router, and I'm gonna plug it to the Ethernet port of my Raspberry Pi and into the Ethernet 0 of the Falcon controller. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, so give me a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. So I have restored both devices, the Falcon controller and the Falcon Player. I plugged the Ethernet cord from a Raspberry Pi into our controller. So now let's open a browser and see if we can find those two devices, the controller and the player. So I'm going to start with the Falcon Player, and here we go. It open up. So now if you notice on the top, we have two connections. We have the wireless, which is 0100, and we have the Ethernet with the secondary network with 1100. So that's what we have right here. Okay, so we have the 0100 on the Wi-Fi and the 1100 on the Ethernet. So now let's see if we can get to the Falcon controller, which is 185. So we open another tab and let's try to hit that 185, and it's not opening. We cannot get to it yet, and there's an explanation for it. So I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to go to my diagram. So now we have my computer, our computer, which is sitting on network number 0. Well, this computer doesn't know of the existence of this second network. So for that, we need to tell this computer that there's a second network and how are we going to get to it. And for that, we're going to issue the next instruction, which is a route add. What this is going to do is add that IP address of my Falcon controller, and it's going to find a way to get to it, which is using our wireless, which is 0100, which is now a secondary router. Okay, so let's issue this command. Keep in mind that you're gonna have to replace these few numbers with your IP addresses that you choose or that you have on your networks. So I'm gonna open up the command prompt, and I'm gonna do a route add 10.0.1.85. The mask is gonna be 255. 255.255.255.0, and it's going to go through the 10.0.0.100 and then a -p. The p needs that it's going to preserve that this instruction after we restart the computer. If we don't issue that -p, then when we restart our computer, we're going to lose it and we have to re-enter it again. So I'm going to click enter, and then reply back with an OK. So now I'm going to do a route print, and here it is. We have a persistent route of 185 going through 0100. So now if we try to reach for our Falcon controller, we should be able to do so. But first we need to restart my computer, because this routing table does not get into effect until we restart the computer. So I'm going to again pause the video at this point, and I'm going to restart my computer, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, and I'm back. So I have restarted my computer. So now this last instruction that we gave, the route add, should be in my routing table, and we should be able to get to our Falcon controller using that IP address 185, and there we go. So now we have two different IP addresses, 0.100 and 185. So we have two networks in here, and thanks to that setup that we did, and that routing enable between these two devices, the wireless and the Ethernet. Now we can talk back and forth to these two devices. So now we can place them outside or any place in your house, as long as you have Wi-Fi communication, right? So that's it. That's it. I hope you find this useful. If it doesn't work the first time you do it, try it again. There's no problem changing IP address until you get it right, right? Just keep in mind that my IP address are going to be different from yours. Yours could look like 192.168. Mine looks like 10.0. something. So give it a try, and if you have any questions, just let me know. So thank you again for watching, and please subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be uploading many more videos. Thank you very much.